Hello, I'm on lunch break, so I thought I'd give you a quick update on, the whole diagnosis thing that I've been pursuing ahead of the new year. Although this is now probably going into January, the way it's going. But so I went to the doctor. Remember the first time I went, it was for my right hip, and I did an MRI. Now I went for my left knee and ankle, but also to look at the results of the MRI. She said there is definitely an irritation in the cartilage, but the blood work meant that there is no inflammation, so it's not a generalized inflammation or anything like that. So it's good to know that it's localized. Right now she wants to follow a conservative approach in that obviously the whole physio thing still didn't work, although it's been over 2 months. So what she wants to do is to put an injection in my right hip. It's a sort of a sedative injection to help relax that area. Probably will also act as a lubricant, and then she will also recommend an additional round of physio with the focus of trying to put my hip where it should be in the socket. But there wasn't anything that made her think of let's go surgery first. So she first wants to try that, and then potentially, if it's not working, try steroid injections and a few more things. And if it doesn't work, we would go the surgery route, which she said people recover from quite well, and that's also what somebody had commented in my previous video too. But she said it's very unlikely. So that's on the hip. On the knee part, that was a bit more complicated. So we discussed. I moved a bit. We did some ultrasounds, and there is definitely some strain, some inflammation and irritation inside my knee, so it's quite deep. So it's where the fibula, there's a little emptiness between you have a bone here, femur, and another bone, and I have a very deep pain in there. So she said that yes, definitely the tendons show that it's been quite painful, but she would like to do an MRI. So that's what I'm going to do next. And for the ankles, although sometimes they get swollen, she said that actually my ankles seem relatively healthy, and that most of the pain is because of the knees, but also because my calves are very tight, which is something I already know. I mean, I try to foam roll them and everything, but apparently I'm not doing enough. And so she said that again for the ankles the x-rays were not very conclusive, so she wants to do an MRI. And because it didn't show, like, because I came to her not having worked out or anything or walked at all, because I just came from the bus, and walking is a very big trigger for me. She said that what I have to do before my next MRI is just go on a few walks so that I get that irritation that I normally have been avoiding. And although it's not nice, she said just pop an ibuprofen and get through it, but it would be better for my MRI to go when I have a flare-up than when things are not as painful. So that's something that I'm gonna have to plan. I only have a few days until my MRI, so I'm going to try to go on walks whenever it's possible, but it's going to be quite difficult because I'm just back from a few days off, and I have a lot of things. Right now I have 453 unread emails, and I've been working all morning. Had lunch very briefly in 2 parts because I had lots of meetings. So I'm thinking, I told her that I might not necessarily be able to go for a walk, but one way to aggravate my situation is when I wear new shoes. So she said just wear a pair of new shoes even if you're at home, and then when you get the swelling, we'll check it out. So that's the update. I know that it's not very relevant for most of you, but it's just to show how much you have to pursue certain things. And I know that it's really tedious. It adds up. You have to make the time, you have to make financial sacrifice, you have sometimes to find new specialists, etc., etc. But I just, like, if I had stopped because she said your ankles look fine, that wouldn't have been right, because my ankles are very painful. Even when she touched them, she saw how painful it was, and so it's not very easy. It's quite a lot of follow-up, but we'll get there. I nearly forgot why I actually picked up the camera to film this for you guys. It's because I had my blood tests, and she did ask about a couple of things, and one of them was that I have extremely high B12 levels, and then she showed me the number, and so I just went into my records, and I showed her that pretty much every other time that I've had a blood test, I have very high B12, and so yes, it is possible that genetically I have extremely high B12, but it also means that I have to be careful not to reintroduce some of that in my diet. And so, and actually when she looked at the thing, she said, and although it's still extremely high, it's lower than it was a few years ago. So two things from that. One, it's always good to keep records from other blood tests, because I was immediately able to tell her, look, I had a blood test in June last year and another one in December the year before, and I pulled them out. So I think my PSA is to, even if you don't know whether you're going to use that anytime afterwards, I think just make sure that your medical records are always accessible whenever you're going to see a doctor or pursuing a new diagnosis. I mean, you might think it's completely unrelated, but you never know what they're going to ask. So in my case, it was really good that I was able to pull records from 2018 and from 2019, etc. And the second thing is that, so I went afterwards because I have low iron and I have to take iron tablets, and she said, also be careful because iron tablets at times would have B12. So what I did is I just went to my supplements section in the kitchen, and I pulled all my supplements, and because I keep the boxes, right, and then I started circling which one would have B12, and I found that the iron tablet that I take has 100% of the daily intake. There is also an ashwagandha thing that I don't really always take, but it has also 100%. And there is another thing that I don't really take, it's the cognitive formula, which has 40%. So if for any reason on one random day I decided to have all three of these things, I'd have 240% of B12. That's still not it, because I never actually have all of them. I usually only have the B12, but even with only the iron, sorry. But even with that, I'm gonna have to be careful. So I will have to look for an iron tablet that does not have B12 added to it. So I just thought to put it out there, because sometimes things creep into your multivitamins, and it's good to know where you have too much of and versus not. So yeah, that was my PSA of the day. It's Christmas, and since I don't celebrate, I'm going to do my own tradition, which is writing in my letters. So this is the pen I'm gonna use. I will choose the ink in a bit. Then I'll get all my stationery. I usually get my stationery from Mount Street Printers. So this is my setup. I first started by writing my initial list of people that I'm writing to and what they're getting. Like Klaus is getting a thank you card, so everyone else is getting a Christmas card. There is one person I'm sending a letter to. So just for me to know who I have here my stamps. I have for Europe, worldwide, and the UK. And then these are the 2 Christmas cards I selected for this year. The thank you card. I like when there is this little felt in red. I have it also on my Christmas cards. And then this is for the letter. I selected this ink. It's carob. It's by Urban, and the carob color is actually this very rich brown, and it has gold. So I'm gonna shake it a little bit, then refill my pen, and then I'll get started. I have now done 5 of the large cards, 2 of the smaller cards, 1 thank you card, and I didn't get to write letters. I still have 2 letters to write, but I will do that tomorrow. So now I'm just going to write the addresses on these, and then I'm going to actually seal them with my stamp. And for that I have my own stamp. It's from a Korean manufacturer, so it's a couple, and the brand is called Stamptitude. That's what it looks like. It's artisanal, it's handmade, and it has my initials. I decided to go with this wax because I actually have 2 vials of this, and this vial for some reason doesn't close well. So I just thought, you know, I'll just use this one so that I make a dent in it rather than try to use other sets of wax that I have. And then I just take these pebbles, and normally I would melt them in this spoon, pour it, and that's it. So it's going to be quite nice to do. I have now put the stamps on the UK envelopes, and I now have the international ones. I have some for Europe and some for world. So usually what I do is I use my kitchen scale to weigh my letters and then put the right stamp